Hello and welcome back to Bourbon Barrel Talk. I'm your host, Scott Minton. Today we are back in the Brock Bourbon Bar, and we are welcoming the founders, or at least two of the four founders from Four Branches Bourbon. First of all, Harold is definitely with us, so this is Harold Underdown. He's one of the co-founders, and then RJ Casey, we are hoping, is going to be able to jump on later, I should say, not lately. But anyway, welcome to the show, Harold. Thanks so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Scott. I appreciate this opportunity to talk with you guys this evening and enjoy a little bit of Four Branches bourbon and talk about the story.
Good deal. Good deal. Well, thanks so much for joining us. So what I always like to do is we kind of like start the show with, before we get into all the rigmarole about Four Branches, yourself, and things like that, what are some of the things that, Harold likes to do in his downtime? Like obviously, all those years in the military, you probably didn't get a whole lot of downtime. So what's life doing now?
Well, I'm kind of retired for the third time or fourth time, and I find myself doing a lot of tastings, but on my really downtime, I like to play golf. I like to do some skeet shooting. I got a motorcycle. I don't ride it that much, but I like riding a motorcycle and hanging out with friends and my family, and just kind of relaxing. Me and my wife just got back from a riverboat cruise that was over in Cambodia and Vietnam.
Oh, wow.
That was fun. So traveling, the education of that traveling, we had some great guides over there in Cambodia and Vietnam. So it was really nice, really nice. And it was on the Mekong River, which is really wide. That's about almost a mile wide river.
Wow.
So
Yep,
it was a lot of fun.
Yep. Well, hey, first of all, thanks for joining the show. Secondly, thank you so much for your service. We as people, and I think we talked a little bit about this before we jumped on actual camera here, but my brothers were both in the military, so I have a great respect and admiration for what you guys do. I know it's not easy to give up time with your family and friends and things like that to go across the world and serve and things like that. So we greatly appreciate what you do.
Thank you.
Good deal.
Yeah.
So, hey, let's jump in. So how did you all get started with Four Branches? Like, there's four of you here. You got a Navy, Army, Air Force, Marine guys, all that type of stuff. How on earth did you all get together to create this thing? Were you all from the same hometown? How did it get going?
No, as we were talking before we started the show, I met Rick Franco down in Bahamas at a resort called Baker's Bay. Baker's Bay got hit by Dorian, the Cat 5 hurricane in 2019. It tore up a lot of the Abacos, and it really tore up the resort. So they hired me to come down and do some safety and security and run the workforce for the restoration project, the rebuild. So when I was down there, I met Rick Franco. Rick's a U.S. Marine, and Rick transitioned over to the CIA. And Rick was driving home from work, and he decided that he wanted to buy a barrel of bourbon, and put it in a bottle, slap a label on it, and sell that and raise money to give back to some of the organizations that support our fallen. And he lost one of his friends that he graduated from VMI. His name is Greg Wright, who was he was killed in action over in Afghanistan back in 2005. So Rick really felt that pull to do something in honor of Greg, plus all the other unsung heroes that we've had that fallen overseas. So, but it's not as simple as purchasing a barrel, buying bottles, and slapping a label on it and selling it on Facebook. That's what he told us, So, he was talking to me and Mike. Mike Trott is he was the VP of Discoveryland, who runs Baker's Bay and a lot of other clubs around the world. So Mike goes, Rick, you can't do that. And Rick started. So we basically decided at that point to do our homework and build a brand. So, Rick, myself, and
RJ's
Mike,
here. I'm going to let him in.
RJ's in? Okay.
I'm letting him in now.
RJ's Special Forces.
So he's not real good at computer work?
Well, yeah, he is good. He is good. So maybe.
Oh, there he is. I see video. We still need audio. I think you're muted there, RJ. All right.
I think you'll figure it out.
Okay,
Yeah,
we got you, RJ.
No, there you go.
Yep, I
We
hear
got you
you.
now.
Hey guys,
Okay.
sorry I'm at an event in Atlanta, so it's might be a little loud, but I think the crowd left, so I think we're good.
You think you're good?
Awesome.
All right.
Welcome.
Welcome to the
Awesome.
show.
Thanks for having us. No, really appreciate it.
Yeah.
So Harold's in the middle of telling us kind of how you all met and how you all started the brand and label. So I'll let you continue, Harold.
Yeah, well, so after, I met Rick down in Bahamas, and then Mike, well, of course, he was down there as well. So I've met Mike. So we decided, they were saying, look, we've got a Marine Corps, U.S. Marine officer, CIA guy. We got U.S. Air Force, CIA. Then they called me, and I was a U.S. Navy retired SEAL. And then, as time went on, we was like, look, we've got 3 out of the 4, DOD branches. We need to find RJ. So basically, we had a mutual friend who said, "Hey, you got to reach out to RJ." So we reached out to RJ, and that pretty much brought us all 4 together. And about 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, and then we started the journey of walking down the road, going, hey, doing a lot of homework. We went to a lot of distilleries out in Kentucky, asked a lot of questions, and in our surprise, the industry was very transparent. And we were thinking, why are they talking to us? Why are they bringing us behind inside their distilleries and really sitting down with us and telling us? And the first person we met was Jeff Hopmeyer. And, Jeff Hopmeyer is he's a big broker in bourbon, and he's been in the business a long, long time. I think he just retired. But anyway, we were fortunate enough to walk into his house in Nashville, Tennessee. And he said, I don't usually invite people into my house, but I think he kind of really appreciated the 4 of us being all 4 different branches of the military. And we weren't young chickens, right? We're all retired or, moved on in life from the military. And Jeff was just like, you sure you guys want to do this? So it's very difficult, business, because of the competition out there. And we said, yes, we do want to do it. So, but that's how it really got started. And then you go down the road of selecting the bottle. You think that would be easy, but when you're standing in Saber Glass in Louisville, Kentucky, and you're looking at walls and walls and about 15 shelves high of glass bottles, you're like going, it's a little more difficult than we thought, right? But we chose that bottle because it's a diamond bottle, it's a premium bottle, and it's got 4 sides on it to align with 4 branches. So
There we go.
but that's how it got moving, right? And then it just went on from there, right? We had to do a lot of other things, and I'll let RJ jump in here when you guys are ready for him.
Absolutely. Nick, did you have the next one?
You mentioned that it kind of happened around, just buying a barrel. I guess, you all came together. What was that? If you go a little bit more in depth into the process of how were you looking to buy just barrels, or were you just trying to reach out to somebody to try to make you a blend, or what was kind of the original goal that you were looking for, and how'd you land on that particular group you went with?
Yeah, I think we all knew and understood that we had different palates, and so we all got together as a 4-man team and started talking about what we liked, what we didn't like, for sure. And then once we all 4 kind of decided on that, we started dealing with Bardstown Bourbon Company after Jeff Hopmeyer recommended them. And Mark Irwin's a former Delta Force commander, so it was pretty easy, and we had a lot of mutual friends. And then obviously Steve Nally strolls into the picture, and he's just a bourbon magician, 50-year Bourbon Hall of Fame legend. And so based on what we wanted to taste, smell, how we wanted it to finish, like they came up with sourcing our bourbon from particular places. And then we went to the tasting room, and they were like, hey, Steve's going to pop his head in and say hi real quick. And, we're in the military, so he pokes his head around the corner, and we're just giving each other a bunch of crap. And he's like, who are these guys? And he kind of walks in, and he ends up spending 2 hours with us. And
wow.
Steve is actually the genius behind, like, hey, you guys are 4 branches. There's, 4 branches of the military. Like, why don't you have 4 grains? Why don't you add some wheat? We started with 5 and tried 10 right after that. And he was like, oh my God, you guys got something special here. So that's how we kind of came up with our founder's blend.
Gotcha. That was going to be kind of my next question was how did y'all come up with 4 grain? Because, bourbon, when people think of it, it's very distinct, right? There's two different things. You got bourbon, you have corn, you have rye, and then you have malted barley, and then you have corn, wheat, and then malted barley. Very, very few people go to that 4-grain method, which I love 4 grains typically. For one, I think that it gives a layer of complexity sometimes, especially at barrel strength. When that wheat kind of gives you that extra viscosity and a little bit more legs to it, and then gives you also a roundness of sweetness to kind of mellow out that rye spice. Because sometimes, those high ryes can get really, really spicy with all those baking flavors. So
one of the quick follow-ups I had was that, and maybe RJ can fill in, is that, doing some, pre-prep for this. RJ, can you tell me the story about Damn It, Harold?
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, let's
Here
not
we
let
go.
Harold tell that story because he just does not do it justice. So Dan is one of their primary blenders. He's amazing at Bardstown Bourbon Company. And when Steve came up with, hey, Dan, why don't you add 5% wheat? He had enough for that, and we had, good full samples. And then he was like, you know what? Let's go a little more. Let's go 10% on the wheat. And he goes, well, I'm gonna have to go get it. So he came back with enough for like a little vial, and Dan was very specific. He didn't say this is all we have verbatim, but he said, okay, you guys, this is your sample for you all to taste. And so I'm not sure what Harold was thinking, except for it tasted really good. But Harold took the vial for all 4 of us, and was like, oh man, this is really good. You guys got to try this. And we're like, really, Harold? Because you just drank it all. Oh my God. And we were like, damn it, Harold, what are you doing? So it was hilarious. And we're probably, again, I can't wait till we come out with a t-shirt that says damn it, Harold on it, because that's just classic. Classic Navy SEAL. What are you going to do?
Yeah. It's all about them,
that
right?
Will not go away. Thanks, Nick, for bringing that back up.
It had to be told, Harold. Come on, that's part of our history.
I know. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Just good, clean fun right there.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
We all have the whiskey here, so let's take a little sip. Let's talk a little bit about it. Kind of tell us, what your thought process was, and we'll give you our tasting notes. And I don't know if you all have some that you all have already, wrote up or things like that. I try to go blind at these things, right? So that way we're not, just doing whatever. But let's kind of go from there and dive in. Everybody get a little sniff and a little taste, and we'll go from there. So I cheated a little bit earlier. I've been smelling on this a long time.
I've been tipping on a little too.
Yeah.
Same.
Now, one thing I'll say that early note that I get on the nose, almost like a honeysuckle. If you've ever been to Midwest, if you've ever had a honeysuckle.
Yeah, definitely some of those floral notes. But I tell you, the one thing that sticks out right away is there's a citrus to it. Like there's almost like an orange or a lemon on the nose. And then I took a little sip earlier, and it seemed like it came through pretty well on the palate. But man, there's a ton of baking spice on this thing.
My favorite.
And correct me if I'm wrong. Is this a blend of 4 to 7 year old distillate?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, about 4 to 7.
Yeah.
And since you guys are in Indiana, we source about 50 of the barrels that we come up with these batches. These batches are about 2,500 cases when we run. This week we just ran our 3rd run, and I can tell you guys, looking at the bottle, you have a number 2 run or number 3 run.
Okay.
So a little difference between our OG, we call it, our original. Our original is a little more spicier. I feel. I think RJ probably feels the same. Number 2 run, number 3 run is a little more, just an edge to the right with more of the vanilla and the caramel, oak, that kind of flavoring. It doesn't have as much spice. And then you guys are not going to pick up, but if you have an OG, it's OG comes through cinnamon. Yep. That's an OG, or that's a number 2 run right there.
Gotcha.
That you guys have.
Yeah, it's definitely got some heavy baking spice, though. I could even see where there's probably just a touch of cinnamon on it, but it's more like nutmeg, some like cardamom, some different things like that that's coming through especially on the palate. The nose is just like Nick said. I'm getting definitely some flowery, some citrus.
Yeah, that citrus is really starting. The more I smell, it's really, really starting to come through.
Some light vanilla and a little bit of caramel. So
Yeah.
seems to be just a hint of like tobacco or leather coming through on that mid palate.
That's what I say. I get that little bit of leather mid to late palate. Get a nice vanilla, even a nice good kind of oaky char on that beginning mid. palate as well as you kind of really get into the taste of it.
And for 96 proof, it's got some pretty solid legs to it. I've been kind of rolling it around the glass, letting it do its thing, and it's definitely got some legs to it. And
you even coined the term, and instead of a Kentucky hug, you called it a Kentucky kiss, I believe.
Kentucky kiss, yep. And I believe our communications team, Angela knows at Double Diamond, they do a great job for us, and they have a majority of female, and they're just great. They've been really great with us, and Evolve too is our PR firm that puts us in touch with great people like yourselves. And we just finished filming a NBC Today show that's going to air Monday on Veterans Day at Bardstown Bourbon Company. So
wow,
be on the lookout for that.
Cool.
It is awesome.
Absolutely.
It was a great deal. But we kind of lean toward that Kentucky kiss and respect of all of our great women that are behind the scenes and helping us with this journey.
Gotcha. Yeah. We often give a lot of credit to women on this show. I mean, I have a lot of respect for the women in this industry, and they just seem to have fantastic palates, like especially for blending and things to that nature. So, I definitely understand that.
And what we've seen so far is Four Branches Bourbon, the Founders Blend, has been really, really accepted, I think, with our female. When I'm doing tastings, the female, I go, well, hey, just have you ever had a bourbon? They just, no. And I said, well, just have a sip. If you don't like it, you can always, I wouldn't say spit it out, but you can. But they go, wow, I can taste this. It's not setting my throat on fire. Mm-hmm. They're very receptive to it. So it's been really good.
So let's dive.
Actually, when you talk about age, we're going back and forth with Steve, and so like Harold was saying, our youngest bourbon's 4-year, and our oldest is under 9. But the way they blend those mash bills, it comes out right around 7 years old. And the 2 words we keep hearing from people that taste it, because everybody's palate is different, is smooth and complex. And we've gotten a lot of compliments, and like Harold was saying, women that don't drink bourbon is like, ooh, this is smooth. Ooh, I like the flavor. We've been really happy with the reception of it.
Yeah, it's definitely a very smooth product for sure. So let's dive back into the actual blend. It's a 4-grain. So was this distilled as a 4-grain, or did you all blend like 3-grain and 3-grain and kind of married it together to give you kind of that where you're at as far as like the mash bill goes?
We brought in about 50 barrels of MGP 21 rye.
Okay.
And that's a 4-year plus, right? Yep. All of that was 4-year plus. And then we purchased about 25 barrels of aged wheat barrels from Wilderness Trail and Green River.
Okay.
So basically we're hunters, right? We're out hunting. Rick Franco's a big hunter, but now instead of hunting, deer or whatever you want to hunt, we're hunting the best bourbon we can get our hands on, right? So and there's lots of distilleries. People ask us, where's your distillery? Well, we don't have a distillery. There's 3,000 distilleries in the United States. So unless you want to give us $200 million to build a distillery, we don't need that. So we've got people from North Carolina to Indiana to Kentucky, but we're very proud of our partnership with Bardstown Bourbon Company. Mm-hmm. They've been great. And I see us, we'll acquire the barrels, but we're making sure that we put quality juice in our bottles for Founders Blend. We just had another LTO come out, limited time offering, Black Ops. Black Ops is 9-year-old 21 rye that we rested and finished in 4 Caribbean rum barrels.
All right.
And it's unbelievable. I mean, it's really, it's 100 proof, but it's really good.
So those 21% rise, like they really, really take on finishings really, really well. So I can only imagine how good that is. Because so the Caribbean rum rye, did you get that from like Foursquare or one of those big companies, or where did you get those barrels from, or do you know?
It was actually Hemingway.
Hemingway? Okay.
Yeah, Hemingway.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Definitely a good solid product there. So
Absolutely.
I was gonna say that me and RJ swam out to sea and took them off a pirate boat, but
I know better than that. RJ's in the Army. He don't swim nowhere. I was a swimmer in high
he
school.
can swim. RJ's a swimmer.
Well, I'm about to say the one thing I noticed, I was like going, it says U.S. Army, but then it had the picture on the biopic is RJ in the water in a wetsuit.
There you go.
Yeah, actually, it's funny because the first spirit I think Harold and I started with is rum, just being combat divers and being around the ocean. That's the spirit of choice for maritime operations. Mm-hmm. And then once you get to the agency and you get to a higher level of operations, it's Scotch and bourbon, and you lean one way or the other based on your palate and what you like. And we obviously went towards bourbon, so that's kind of how Harold and I arrived on the scene.
I figured Harold would be a gin guy. I thought Navy was like gin. Like, isn't that where Navy strength gin came from?
I think that's officers only, isn't it?
Well, yes. Yeah, well, I was an enlisted guy, right? So we got to drink out of the bilge, which was grog. Right?
Fair enough.
New meaning for rot gut, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
It is impressive to me, though, being a 96 proofer, that I typically don't drink a lot of bourbons under 100 proof because you do lose some of that complexity that comes either with age in the barrel or just some of the flavors tend to die off too fast in the palate. But this 96 proof actually tastes higher than that, and that's really cool when you're able to take a 4 grain under 100 proof, but it still goes down like 105 to 110. That's fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Literally, when I pour and I do tastings, I cover part of the label that shows 96 because I always get asked that question. Hey, what proof is this? And I was like, I don't know. You tell me. And they usually 110 to 115 is what I get. Sure. So that's a compliment. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
If I could say that it tastes anything, I was thinking about be like 101 to 105 in that range.
Yeah.
If I were to say, because the thing is that I even after a while of, I set the glass down after taking a sip, I still get some of that viscous residue that is still kind of lingering around in your mouth, and you can still feel it on the back of your tongue and still get some of those flavors still to permeate through.
Yeah, I just really like the baking spice. Like, it just keeps coming through, and there's nice little levels of complexity that run with that nutmeg a little bit. I'm actually getting a little bit of ginger like on there too.
I was thinking that too.
So definitely a solid pour there. So
kind of like a candy ginger. A little bit sweeter.
Yeah. So RJ, Harold had the pleasure of telling us a little bit more about himself. If you don't mind, dive in. Tell us a little bit more about yourself. How did you, why did you team up with Harold? I guess would be a better question. I've talked to him long enough. I figured that it's got to be rough, dealing with Harold every now and then. So, why and how and all that good stuff, and tell us a little bit more about your background.
Yeah. So I actually got my start in Special Forces. I was with 2nd and the 19th out of West Virginia for roughly 16 years. And I had a lot of twists and turns with that career field and just was really lucky and had a blast. Started in contracting, and that's when I went over to agency, ground and maritime support kind of things. Just because Harold and I, of the 4 of us, we have kind of a medical background, point of injury medicine mainly. And right now I'm with the British American Project at the Georgia Atlanta Aquarium. So sorry for all the background noise. But I was actually working on a movie in Eastern Europe. I was in Prague, and I got a call from our mutual friend, GC Wine, and he was like, hey, man, you're going to get a call from a number that you don't have in your phone. Answer it, and whatever they say yes, and you're welcome. And I was like, well, what's this all about? And he goes, it's a bourbon company. I was like, well, hold on, GC, what? And he clicked. And then as I'm looking at the phone, staring in disbelief, the phone rings, and it's a number I don't know. And it's these 3 guys. It's Rick, Mike, and Harold. And they're like, hey, you're friends with GC Wine, aren't you? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, well, he told us to call you, and we're looking for an Army guy for our bourbon company. And I said, hey, guys, I love bourbon. Don't get me wrong. I consume probably more than my fair share, and I can tell you what bourbon I like and what I don't like, but I can't tell you why. Like, as far as bourbon goes, and they're like, don't worry, we got that covered. And I was like, okay. And they're like, we are all going to learn so much about bourbon in this company. It's going to be an amazing journey. And, we've heard your name. Like Rick and Mike were both at the agency. They're like, hey, we've heard your name in some of the small circles we swim in. And we didn't know you were in the Army. GC told us, because you're in the Air Force Reserve now with Pararescue down in Florida. We didn't know you got your start in the Army. So you're our Army guy if you want. And we ended up having a couple conversations, and it was, why bourbon? Why now? What do you want to do with this company? And they said all the right things. And I was like, all right, what's the buy-in? I'm in. Let's do this. So it's been an amazing journey, and I look forward to meeting up with these guys every time we get together. And I feel very lucky to be on this adventure. So
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's part of it.
Awesome. So, hey, it looked like when we did a little bit of background and research that it showed that you guys were like based out of Nashville, Kentucky. Do all of you live there, or is that just where you're doing some of your bottling, or what does that work? How does that work?
Yeah, so we live in 4 different states.
Okay.
Okay.
Rick Franco lives just outside of Nashville, and so we're basically, on paper, we're a Tennessee company, but literally all our magic happens at Bardstown Bourbon Company. We source our bourbon from Indiana and Kentucky. It's all shipped to Bardstown Bourbon Company, where it's blended, bottled, labeled, and shipped. And that's kind of it. But Harold, being the Navy SEAL that he is, and being on a lot of East Coast teams after his West Coast initial tours, he lives in Virginia Beach, Virginia. And then I split my time now between Florida and the DC area, but I own a place in Florida, in New Smyrna Beach. Mike is right
New
near
Shark
Scottsdale.
Beach.
Yeah,
New Shark. It's like the capital of the world. So we proudly have that on a lot of T-shirts down there.
Yeah.
And then Mike, our managing partner, who does all the heavy lifting administratively and coordination wise, he's just outside of Scottsdale in Arizona.
Oh, wow.
And
You all didn't even try to get close.
no, and I think one good thing out of COVID that came is you can basically work in almost any industry from anywhere. You can travel the world, and as long as you have your iPhone and your computer, there's not much you can't do. And then obviously there's a lot of face-to-face things that we have to do, and we do that, and we coordinate it well. We all 4 have very busy schedules. Our schedules are insane, along with these guys' resumes. I mean, they're incredible. So they all do so many different industries. So it's been really cool to link up with these guys and just, really put out a good product. And the messaging, it's one of the things that we talked about during the interviews. Well, hey, we have to have a give back component. We have to, some of the money we raise is obviously going to charity. Are you okay with that? And I was like, yes, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Gotcha.
And then about a year into it, we kind of looked at each other, and we were like, I think, Harold, being, a medic, was like, hey, is this really, is this the most responsible thing the 4 of us could do on the planet? And then we all started talking. We're like, well, we're not going to stop alcoholism or, the consumption of alcohol or the sale of it. But you know what? Maybe within our community, with all the self-medication and veteran suicide that you hear about in the news, and there's first responders and the NFL and everybody in between, we're not the only ones with those issues. But it was really important for us to kind of change the messaging on it. So Rick initially came up with Serve Honorably. And after we had that initial conversation, hey, how do we change? How can we affect how people consume alcohol? We all kind of looked at each other and we're like, yeah, we say serve honorably. What if we say drink honorably? Like, everyone knows what drink responsibly knows, but nobody's said it in like 2 decades. So why don't we put our spin on it? Why don't we bring it back? And then we're going to have to answer the mail. What does that mean to us as a company? And I think part of the soul of our company is, when you read drink honorably, we want you to understand, hey, you shouldn't be drinking to forget anymore. You should be sipping to remember. And honor those people and friends that you've worked with. And we all serve our community, just drink honorably and don't dishonor the memory of friends. And, and it's not just for those instances also. Sip to remember can and is a good thing. As far as, graduations, hitting a home run, game-winning home run, Rick's kids are really good baseball players. And there's so many events that you can remember, and that doesn't necessarily always have to be a bad memory. So, and we encourage the special occasions and the good memories as well.
So I love the fact that you all have some kind of a charity component. And as a podcast, that's one of the big things that I've always tried to do, even from an early onset. During COVID, I worked with Volunteers of America, and we did we bought a barrel of bourbon. We sold it through a private groups and clubs and things like that. And we donated every last penny of that bad boy to Volunteers of America to serve our armed forces guys that were coming back, that were having mental health issues, things to that nature, from coming back from overseas. And we just took a lot of time and effort and a lot of pride working with VOA to do that one. Matter of fact, it was called 2020 Closed. I think Nick might remember that bottle, but it was real fun, real unique, and oddly enough, it was a 4-grain. So it's kind of funny that whole
really
thing
cool.
is tied in.
Yeah.
I will try to.
It's really cool.
I will try to look for a bottle of it if I have any more left, and I'll try to see if I can't get a sample sent over to you guys. So I'll take a picture and send it over to you. It's kind of funny. We used the old park ranger from National Lampoons, the John Kennedy, the character.
Oh, that's
And it was like,
hilarious.
sorry, folks, we're closed, is what it said. It's because everything was closed. It was 2020, but we saw a need when we talked to Rachel and man, what was her name? I can't think of it right now. Jamie. And we were like, they're like, hey, man, Scott, we're really, really hurting for funds right now with it being COVID and everything else with our veterans right now. We're really trying to do everything we can to, get them a place to sleep at night and things like that, veterans in the community and things to that nature. So it's just odd that when you talk about what you did and then the fact that ours was a 4-grain, you guys are doing 4-grain, it's just like it's all spinning in my head. So it's kind of cool.
That's great.
So let's talk a little bit more about, I guess, kind of what do you like, right? Like you guys talk about, you guys all have different palates, right? So when you think about whiskey and bourbon and things like that, if you're not drinking your stuff, what do you typically like to drink on?
Well, for me, I was really, I got a little bit sold out on bourbon or, brown alcohol, after high school. I was down in Myrtle Beach and acting crazy after graduation, but I couldn't smell it for years and years and years. And it took me all the way down to the Bahamas. And this is after I retired from the military, where I could actually tolerate, brown spirits. Then I was drinking a little bit of scotch. And then I kind of started moving over to bourbon, but I was, Maker's Mark, Woodford Reserve, and Woodford I think would be my go-to double barrel. I think that's really tasty, and Maker's Mark is solid, right? So I would have to probably go with those two if I had to answer you.
Super cool, super cool. We actually just did a charity event with Woodford Double Oak. It's so funny that everything. I swear, it's like the craziest thing. As a matter of fact, I got a picture of the bottle. 'Cause I don't think Nick, did you get one? I can't remember.
No, I still use some money for them. So yes.
You're getting some, is what he's telling me. Yeah.
Yes.
So funny. Oddly enough, I don't know if I can bring it up here. I'm going to get some feedback.
Okay.
But hey, so 4 branches, you like it, Nick?
Yeah.
What do you think,
Absolutely.
Nick?
I really enjoy it. You know what? I'm actually kind of perusing the website, and I was actually reading up a little bit on that Black Ops that you had mentioned, and that looks like it's going to be special. All right, he's kind of showing off the bottle there. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
So
nice.
we did that one for the
very
Education Foundation. We have a local education foundation where we raise money to basically help out with what they call it, their academy model. So for like any kids that might want to go into engineering or STEM projects, or in that situation, it was for packing the bus, and we were for kids that don't necessarily have the money to afford like pencils, pens, backpacks, things like that. We have a school bus that drives around to all of our elementary schools and middle schools, and we hand out those supplies to kids. So we did that for that event, and we sold those bottles at that event. You could come for like $125, and you got a bottle of whiskey when you left, and just a real fun way to raise some money for charity.
Scott,
really cool.
I think we've been talking about this, give backs and all. I think as we get older in life, and I've been working my whole life, whether it was in a military career or what I've done past the military. But I think as we get older, it's all about giving back, right? I'm not hoarding money. I don't want to hoard money, right? So what do we do as far as Four Branches bourbon? It's really big for us to give back. And we've been very surprised that how much money we've raised in just over probably 15 months of being in business. And what we do, we take our bottles, we donate our bottles to either Folds of Honor events. We had an event in Boston about a year ago, and it was all about we had a company in Boston build us a special case, and inside the case we had the biography of John Connors, a Navy SEAL that was killed in Panama. Well, right now there's an organization building a life-size statue for him in his hometown up in the Boston area. So they invited us up to auction off a bottle of Four Branches bourbon. We just took it to the next level. We said, hey, we're going to get it etched. So we etched all the names of the people that was with him, the platoon mates that was with him on that Panama mission. And we etched it all the way down. And then we put a SEAL Team 4 emblem on the other side of the bottle. But this wooden box was unbelievable. I mean, it was beautiful. It had his picture, his biography in it. And then on the other side, we had his uniform inside there. I sent my Trident off of my uniform, my
Wow.
Navy Trident device that I have on me. I sent it to Boston. They put it in that box. That box went for $15,000.
That's amazing.
Wow.
That's awesome.
$15,000. And we were down in Florida, and RJ just got back from Texas. One bottle went for what was that bottle? What did that bottle go for, RJ?
Yeah, actually, Rick and I were at the Great American Shoot for the Special Forces Charitable Trust, and we were at the Staccato Ranch. That bottle, it was a bottle that was signed by all four of us. I jumped it into the 80th anniversary of D-Day, and it was a cross-channel jump too. So we flew from England just like the guys did, jumped into Normandy. Of course, it wasn't at night and the weather wasn't horrible and we weren't facing the Germans in World War II, but we kind of reenacted that historic jump. And I jumped a couple bottles in, and one of those bottles went for $25,000 for that nonprofit.
That's
so
awesome.
it's pretty amazing.
Dang.
That is
really
amazing.
Great.
Yeah,
And we're over to date right now. We're over $400,000 give back. So
Fantastic.
That's
yeah,
excellent.
we hope for more. So
Yeah.
I think all four of us feel like we'll never do enough, and we're just going to keep doing our best and give back as much as we can when we can. So far so good.
Yeah. That's awesome. So, what about you, RJ? What's your go-to when you're sipping on something that's not Four Branches?
Yeah. So as far as bourbon goes, I think Woodford Reserve is right in the sweet spot. When Buffalo Trace came out, I was pleasantly surprised. So I don't mind them. And then I've been introduced to, like, we were finishing Extraction 2, and Chris Hemsworth had a 25-year Belvini, and I was like, oh my goodness. Like, just over the years, I've come to appreciate the different types and the different companies and distilleries and how they do things. And then obviously you run into like a million palates everywhere. So it's interesting to talk bourbon because you could try the same thing with somebody and you're going to taste something a little different just based on your palate. So it's fascinating. It's all fascinating to me.
Yeah, absolutely. So on this, when you said we have batch 2, do you have like the tasting notes that you all gave out on that? Because I know we kind of talked about what we thought ours were, and do you guys have those, or do you know?
So all the tasting notes for all three versions, we actually, all four of us went to Bardstown Bourbon Company to try our second pour. And then we brought two people too, Greg Watson and one other person. And none of us could tell the first batch from the second batch. We're like, all right, this is good. Now you can tell a little bit if you really focus, but on that initial, we're trying both, it was that close. And that's where we always want to be. We always try to match our Founders Blend. But as we've progressed, and I just think it's gotten just a little better for different reasons, right? Because our palates are different. It's gotten a little spicier, a little less sweet. And I think all four of us have been really pleased with how close we've matched it, because it is the same mash bill and it is the same age. So it's just, sat a little differently, a little longer here and there. So we've been very pleased with how Bardstown Bourbon Company sticks to that quality and, as small as we are as a company, they really, every time we roll in there, they roll out the red carpet, and it's just a big family. So
Yeah.
it's been really cool.
I'm a big fan of Dan and Nick up there. You know, I did a podcast with them. Man, it's probably been 18 months ago. We sat down with them, and that was in maybe, what's the one series called that we all love so much? Discovery. I think it was Discovery 6 had just came out, or 5 had just came out. So it was one of those catch-22s. But they typically will send us some stuff and like, hey, Scott, try this. What you think? And I'm like, well, let me try it. So that's always
Very
fun.
cool.
But they're super great guys. I agree with you. So what made you guys choose like MGP, right? Like a lot of places will source MGP, and I think it's a fantastic product, and I really love the 21% and the 36. But you know, so many people, you know, when they talk about bourbon, they get caught up on that whole Kentucky thing, right? So what made you guys choose that realm or that path over, you know, because obviously Bardstown makes a 21%, right? Green River does. So what made you go the route of the MGP world?
I think our early relationship with Jeff Hopmeyer, you know, since he had access to so many barrels of bourbon, I think he kind of pushed us in that direction initially, and then of course, you know, you got to think about your price, right? You got to think about the cost of goods, and you know, which was going to end up being our MRSP on that, right? MSRP, is that right? MSRP.
Yep.
I get that mixed up sometimes. But anyway, so for us, the 21 rye, you know, they had plenty of it, right? I think we were dealing with a couple other distilleries, and they couldn't get us about 30 barrels. We needed about 50. So, and then some of them didn't want us to buy 50; they wanted us to buy 200. And at the time, we you know, we've been raising money, right? So we've got plank owners, right, who have built us up. We had $1 million, and now we're over probably about 2.4 million. So we have to be careful about spending our money, right? So it's a strategic deal with us when it comes to purchasing 50. They say, well, if you buy 200, we'll give you a certain deal. And we're like, well, we don't need 200 right now. We need 50. So I think MGP really worked well with us. And, you know, sometimes people pick the phone up, sometimes they don't. But I think it was one of those opportunities where MGP really kind of answered the mail for us. And we got those 50 barrels sent down to Bardstown. And then we found the wheated stuff after talking to Steve Nally. And we got to 25 barrels of the wheated from Wilderness Trail initially. I think the second or third run, we probably pulled some off of Green River. But it's, you know, it's business, right? And we have to be reactive. We have to be smart the way we spend our investors' money. And that's how we ended up going MGP. You know, they were a quick reference, real fast. They were very quick to answer the phone, and they had what we needed, and they didn't penalize us for buying 50 instead of, you know, having to put us in that 200 deal, right?
Right.
So we really appreciate them, and they've done a great job for us, and you know, we'll continue business. And we, you know, we're looking at other distilleries across the country, looking at Southern Distillery in North Carolina, Statesville, North Carolina. I went down and toured that place, brand new. I mean, it's beautiful. So, you know, it depends on who has the really good juice and at the good price.
I love the fact that
Yeah,
you
the other
said
thing,
juice.
I know.
yeah, the other thing I think too is listening to the experts, and I think that's one thing we learn in the military. Hey, if you're not the subject matter expert, and you got to accomplish a mission, build the team that are subject matter experts and that can accomplish the mission. So when you're dealing with guys like Jeff Hopmeyer, Steve Nally, and everybody in between, you know, as far as distribution and getting it out there, but, you know, focusing on the juice and leveraging those really incredible networks and relationships that guys like that have, you know, and we just tell them what we want, and they're like, hey, this is what I advise, and we listen to them. So those relationships that we have, and really they've grown into friendships, and you know, those guys are part of our Four Branches family, and we consider them all friends, and they're just amazing. So it's been really incredible. And we also wanted to be able to replicate our founders blend. So, you know, guys like Jeff and Steve are like, don't worry, this mash bill around 7 years, we'll knock it out of the park every time. We've got plenty of juice in various places. Don't worry about it. Do what you can when you can. And so, like Harold said, hey, we had to start out with a certain minimum amount because we were just starting out. But we wanted to make sure it was, we could replicate that and make sure our bourbon was consistent. And, you hear so many stories about companies that start out strong, they get huge,
Yeah.
and then they just start putting maybe less quality in there. And we definitely, that was one of the things the four of us looked each other in the eye and said, we are not going to be that company. We can't. So,
And we just laid down 500 new fill barrels at Bardstown.
Okay, yeah,
So
that's
Ooh,
nice.
Nice.
that's good, right?
Yeah,
It
100%.
just got to
I mean-
age. It's got to age a little bit.
Yep.
Maybe I'll be drawing Social Security before that happens, but that's okay.
But I mean, that's a tribute to you guys are making preparations for the future to keep that product in process and in motion. So
Yep.
that's
Yes.
great.
And if
And
you
that's good to, for the investors to understand too, right? So, these guys are in it to win it, right? This is a no-fail mission for us. We're not going to do one run and quit. We're about 7,500 cases right now. We're in 7 states. We're on, direct to consumer, about 33 to 35. I think we just had a merge on that. We had an acquisition that happened with Speakeasy. So Flavier has more footprint, so
Yep.
they're going to push us out to their, domain. So it looks really good, and hopefully we'll get a nice little uptick after this Today Show airs on Veterans Day.
Yeah.
A couple days.
Well, that was going to be my next question. I was going to ask you about distribution, and I was going to piggyback it behind. Do you guys know Hotel Tango whiskey? He's a Marine out of Indy.
Hotel Tango Whiskey.
Yep.
No, RJ, you heard of those guys?
yes, I've heard of him, and so it's really funny. This is a very transparent community.
Yeah.
You can call up any company. So there's other veteran companies, and
Yeah.
so we've sat down with Scott in their team room for Horse Soldier, and we've
Yep.
hung out with. I know Norm Hooten personally, and Tim Young. I've gone to dinner with him a couple times. We have not contacted him directly, but we've been told a couple times, hey, you should reach out to him because Indiana, they make some good juice.
Yeah.
And they have a whole thing out there. And, oh, by the way, a Marine is running it. And we're like, oh, yeah, we should reach out to
Yeah.
him.
If
So
you need his
we
contact
haven't
information,
yet, but I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, if you need his contact information, I can get it to you. I know he'd be glad to talk to you guys. But that was
Yeah,
going to
that'd be
piggyback
great.
my conversation. I know he's in a ton of the AFI stores around the world, really. I mean, like, that's kind of the thing. I was going to ask, is that kind of your all's, like, eventually goal, I guess, is to kind of branch into that area so that way your guys can enjoy your juice?
Yes, sir. We just got into the, well, it's been a while. We went into the top 5 NEX stores, right? Navy Exchange.
Gotcha, yep.
So they put us in their top 5 for a test. Well, we smoked it, right? We sold out 10 cases per store. So they reloaded, and now they're looking at putting us in, permanent. Also, we have a contact right now we're talking to. Mike is talking through the process right now of working with Europac to support us with APs.
Gotcha.
So, you think about it, AFES is a huge store. I mean, organization, it's global. So is the Navy Exchange, global. So they're talking about putting us in the Army, Air Force, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard.
Yep.
So you hit all of those, plus we got the Navy Exchange down. So
Yeah.
we're looking good moving into 25.
Absolutely.
Wow.
So, super excited.
Have you given any thought moving forward to doing commemorative limited edition runs of anything that would be for either a mission or a war that is kind of near and dear to your hearts or anything like that?
We've
RJ.
got, yeah, I was about to say, we've got a couple different things that we want to do first before we start tackling, specific historic events. But we are going to, our next limited release, we're probably going to drill down a little into some of the foundational units that created different agencies and different special operations units. So we're excited about that. We're excited about, commemorating certain services, and then we'll probably get down to smaller events, like maybe different conflicts. But we've basically more talked about, hey, huge historic units that have impacted all of us and have grown into the special operations and different intelligence community that we have today. and then kind of gone from there. It was really cool to do the Black Ops, and as you'll read on our website, that is really a nod to Rick Prado and his life of service. He started out as a pararescueman in the reserves down in Homestead, Florida, as a PJ. He was also a full-time fireman, so he was, talk about service before self. And then he got recruited by the agency, did 20 plus years there, and retired as basically a 2-star general.
Wow.
And went on from there, and he wrote this book called Black Ops. So we wanted to help him out with that project. We thought it was important. Here's this kid who gets put on a plane by his parents, and he doesn't know if he's going to see him again in Cuba while Castro's coming out of the mountains. And, he ends up in the States, and now he retires as a 2-star general equivalent. That's an incredible story.
Wow.
So we're honored to have him as one of our brand champions. In fact, Rick Prado was our first brand champion ever, the first guy we approached to go out there and represent us once we got our messaging down and our branding down a little bit. And we talked to him about why bourbon and what our messaging was all about, and he was all for it. So it worked out really good, and we've gone on from there. Randy Couture, we're talking to a couple of really, really cool people that basically understand what we're trying to do and want to help. So it's been really cool. So Black Ops is our first LTO. We're super proud of that. It came out amazing, thanks to a lot of people, and we hope you like it when you try that. And then the next limited releases, it's gonna be interesting to see the next 2 that are coming out for sure. And then after that, we'll see. We got to decide.
Okay, so I want to come back to kind of like the brand and everything. I know we talked about the bottle and why it's 4 sides. Can you explain the 4 that's on the front?
Well, I can do that. If you want to, if you look at that, I don't know. If you check it out, it's not just a number, right? We had an artist we worked with. We said, hey, and we started out early on, and it was a tree. It was a tree with 4 branches that was kind of shaped into like a spear, right? And we're like, that's not good.
Okay.
So we went with the number, but we said, hey, we want each piece of this 4 to represent each one of our military branches, right? So if you look at the 4, you see the bottom of the 4's got an arc on it, right? That's the foundation mark.
Yeah, if you want to hold it up a little. There you go.
Hold it up a little. And what you'll see is, maybe I can get it here on my camera here, but but see the bottom, the bottom is like a foundational mark, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
What I like to say on that is like what you see on a ridge line on a hill on a map, right? It looks like a ridge line. That's U.S. Army. U.S. Army was the first founded, right? Branch of the military, right? Back in 1775. And then as you look, the centerpiece coming up in the center, if you look at that, it looks like a mast of a ship or a con of a submarine coming out of water from standing on a shoreline.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the U.S. Navy. U.S. Navy is the second service that was founded. And then you have the horizontal piece coming across, really lean and mean, right? Leanest and thinnest and leanest. I like to tell Rick this because I'm kind of BSing him, but I said Marine Corps is the leanest and meanest. Sure they are. I've dealt with some of those guys. But that looks like a bayonet knife or a sword.
Yeah.
And then the swoop up, the silver swoop up, of course, is the U.S. Air Force, which provides air cover for all services. And you see in the center of it, it looks like a downward facing spear. So on that spear,
Yep.
Yeah.
I see that now.
RJ and myself for special operations. Mike and Rick also worked in special operations with the CIA. But that downward facing spear, you can see only half of that spear is showing.
Yeah.
The piece that is showing is honoring our men and women who are fighting for our freedom today. The piece of that spear is missing is for our fallen.
Oh, I love that.
So
That's nice.
So when you really see that 4, and I tell people, I said that 4 stand by itself one day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because when you see that 4 on a shirt or a ball cap, people will say that's 4 branches bourbon, right? Because they know what each one of these elements of that number means. So it came out great, and we embossed it, and we used black and silver because black and silver looks like an insignia on a uniform, right?
Correct.
Lots of black, lots of silver on a uniform of the military uniform. So
the other thing we wanted was we kind of wanted to be subtle, just be the quiet professionals. agency is all about subtlety, and so is special operations. So when you see it on the bar, it doesn't scream veteran brand. We just got back from combat, drank our bourbon. It's subtle. It's, some would say elegant, and it just looks like a really nice bottle. And then when you drill down on the story and all the symbology on the front and back of it, it tells a really cool story. It tells our story, and yeah, we hope you like it.
It harkens back to that your comments on the honorable drinking, honorable serving, that subtleness to it. So my hat's off to you all for putting the thought and the effort behind that, because it's
And then you notice
awesome.
too the labels on the neck of the bottle is purple.
Yeah.
We chose that color because of the jointness of us, right? I'm a Navy SEAL, RJ Special Forces, Marine Corps, Air Force. Anytime you see a joint operations, that's considered to be a purple operation.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So purple to us was really great because you really don't see purple on a American bourbon or spirits.
No.
You see
No.
it in where Crown Royale, right?
Yep.
Correct.
Crown Royal has purple.
You always
That's
think
the
of
only one.
royalty whenever you
Yeah.
think of purple.
Exactly. So we really like that. And I think RJ said earlier, but we're really big on to serve honorably, drink honorably, and not to drink to forget anymore. Let's sip to remember.
Yeah.
Awesome. So hey,
Now,
go ahead.
one thing, just kind of because we're talking about the symbology, I noticed the challenge coin that they sent along with us. Is there anything you want to kind of speak to that?
Well, I think the challenge coin is something that's that you see in each one of our services. We do a lot of exchanging of that piece, right? And we've had a couple of renditions, Mark One motto, Mark Two, but we've got a new one now, and it looks really nice. It's a little bit bigger. It's got our colors on there. It's got serve honorably, drink honorably. It's got the 4 on there, and hopefully, people will go to our website because we've got the story talks about that 4, right? Talks about the actual what that 4 means. So, and the coins, usually, when we get together, whether it's a military operations or we're on Liberty, we all about, hey, here's my coin, and then we exchange coins, and if you don't have a coin, you may have to buy a beer, but that's not going to break you. But it's a good cause, and I think we kind of skipped over the story behind why we chose 96. We were in the chemistry lab and we are talking about the proof. We went from 95, we went from 80 really to 120, but we ended up going to 95. We're like, boy, that's really good. So we ended up saying, hey, just go to 96. Well, why is that? Well, 96 is what we call a 4-day weekend that we're getting ready to have here on Veterans Day. So anytime in the military, when you're working and you get a 4-day weekend or 4 days off, that's called a 96er, right? It's a 96er.
Cool.
So 96 proof aligns with that. So
96
We
hours
like
for
that.
96 proof for
that's right. 4 days off.
for 96 minutes of memory.
That's right. Sip to remember for 96 minutes. Yeah.
One thing that I really like is just how much and how many different symbols go into everything that you have created. The serve honorably, drink honorably, the colors, the 4, now the 96. It's really kind of a unique, different way of putting a spin on your brand.
Well, I think that just kind of proves that all 4 of us and the people that we have behind us, Double Diamond, Evolve, and there's lots, our brand champions, our investors, we call them plank owners, everything that we, like plank owners, how did you come up with, why do you call your investors plank owners? Because when you build a ship, when a Navy builds a ship and they push it into the water and they christen the vessel, the first crew that comes on board that vessel is called plank owners.
Okay.
And they get a plank owner plaque, right? Because they're the first ones to serve on this brand new commissioned vessel. So, we call our investors plank because they're the first ones that believed in us. They believed that we were going to build this. So they came on board. So everything we do is kind of tied to very deep, heritage of military and just being professional, and like I said earlier, it's a no-fail mission for us.
Yeah.
So we got $2.4 million of investor money, and we pay attention to how we spend it. So it's been a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Well, hey, I want to be respectful of your all's times. Thanks so much for coming on the show. Before we sign off, if you don't mind, you mentioned that you guys are in 7 states, and I know you got some other distribution channels, things to that nature. How can people find Four Branches Bourbon?
Yeah. Actually, if you go to our website and you spell out the four, so FOUR branches.com, you can find it. There's a couple icons on there that'll say buy bourbon, and that's direct to consumer. There's a little map under there to let you know if we deliver to your state or not. And we're into up to 35 states, and that's growing quickly just because of this new acquisition. But there's also a tab that says find locally. So you put your zip code in there, and it'll, it basically, I'll tell you in order how we got started. So to be in liquor stores, bars and restaurants, and to be in a state that way, we started in Tennessee, went to Florida, out to Arizona, then Kentucky, and then up in the DMV area, the Maryland, DC, Virginia area. And we've, it's every state's different. They all want their cut nose. It's just brutal. So we have to learn the rules in each state as we hit that market. And then we have to find a distribution company that fits that state. Like, who's the most successful distribution company or distributor in the state? And, can we get them? So we have to be really careful with our relationships and who we pick to distribute our Four Branches bourbon. But that's the fastest way to find us. Go straight to our website. All our social media is on there as well. You can find a lot of videos, hear a lot more about the story. Harold kind of alluded to it, but our four, there's an animation video that'll show the four coming together and how we, what each symbol stands for. So there's a lot of good information on there.
Good deal.
And the other thing too is you can't even buy Black Ops unless you're in those states, because we only ship pallets to certain states to sell that, because we only made 183 cases and we took 20 off the top, 1 case to each founder, and that's cases of 6. And then the rest, the 16 other cases, are going to charities, 1 bottle at a time, to auction off and raise money for them. But you had to be on our mailing list, and that's when you got the drop, and they gave you the link and the password for you individually to buy Black Ops, and you're limited only to 3 bottles because there's not much of it.
Right.
So it like I said, there's a lot of good information on there.
Good deal. Good deal. Well, guys, thank you so much for coming on the show. We greatly appreciate your time. I'm going to go ahead and sign us off, and if you don't mind, stick around for a couple minutes for a couple extra things afterwards. If you guys are looking for Bourbon Barrel Talk, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, or the X. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. That way you're getting our episodes when they drop every single Sunday at 6 o'clock in the morning. If you have any questions, you can email them at bourbonbarreltalk@gmail.com. Guys, before I sign off, where can they contact you guys in a way if they have questions?
Yes. I mean, they can reach out to us. You can reach me, harold.fourbranchesbourbon.com.
Harold.
Send me an email,
Harold.
and I.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Harold
At
fourbranchesbourbon.com.
Yeah, I was going to say on our website, it'll say contact us if you have any questions. We have 1 or 2 of us that monitor that at all times, and we will get back to you. So we do get a lot of questions through our website. I think it's info@fourbranches.com. But yeah, like I said, that's the best way to get a hold of us, is through our website, or even on social media if you can't find the website.
Gotcha. Well, once again, that's our sign off. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Peace out.